This is the region warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. Its strategic importance.
We need Greenland for national security and even international security.
There's a stretch of water just outside Copenhagen, about 3 miles across, that has quietly become one of the most expensive pieces of geography in Vladimir Putin's world. No missiles, no warships blocking the way, no dramatic standoff, just a legal checkpoint. And every single Russian ship leaving the Baltic Sea has to pass through it. Oil tankers, warships, cargo vessels, all of them, because there's no alternative route. No hidden passage, no backup exit. If you want out of the Baltic, you go through Denmark, or you don't go anywhere. Now that might not sound dramatic at first. Denmark isn't exactly known for projecting power. Most people picture bicycles, clean streets, quiet voices, and a population that looks like it hasn't argued since 1998. Not the kind of country you expect to be sitting on a geopolitical pressure point, and yet that's exactly what's happening. Because in 2026, Denmark isn't just watching traffic move through its waters anymore. It's controlling it quietly, legally, and very deliberately. The Danish Straits, the Øresund, the Great Belt, and the Little Belt form a narrow system of waterways connecting the Baltic Sea to the North Sea. It's one of the most important maritime choke points in Europe. And for Russia, it's not just important, it's essential. Everything that moves out of St. Petersburg, everything that leaves Kaliningrad, everything tied to Russia's Baltic fleet, or its oil exports in that region, all of it funnels through these passages. Which means Denmark doesn't just sit near Russian movement. It sits directly in front of it. And for years, that didn't really matter. Ships passed through, Denmark observed, everyone kept things predictable. But that predictability is starting to disappear because what used to be routine movement is now being watched in detail. Russian vessels aren't just passing through quietly anymore. They're being tracked, identified, cataloged, and in some cases stopped, not with force, with paperwork, because Denmark has started focusing on something far more uncomfortable for Moscow than missiles: legitimacy. A huge portion of Russia's economy now depends on oil exports that don't exactly follow the rules. Enter the shadow fleet, a floating network of aging tankers operating under questionable ownership structures, unclear insurance, and documentation that wouldn't pass a roadside inspection in Nebraska, let alone a naval checkpoint in the Skagerrak. Ships registered in one country, owned through shell companies in another, insured by entities that may or may not exist anymore. For years, these vessels moved largely unchallenged, not because they were invisible, but because nobody wanted the administrative nightmare of dealing with them. Until now. Because Denmark has decided that if these ships want to pass through one of the most tightly controlled maritime corridors in Europe, they're going to meet the standard. And suddenly those maritime ghosts don't look so untouchable anymore. They look exposed. Because here's the reality. You don't need to seize a tanker to stop it. You don't need to fire a warning shot. You don't even need to threaten it. All you need is one violation: expired insurance, faulty documentation, environmental risk, and under Danish jurisdiction, that's enough. Enough to delay a ship, enough to detain it, enough to send it into a legal process that can take weeks or longer, which means the oil doesn't move. And if the oil doesn't move, the money doesn't move. And this is where the situation starts to shift from inconvenient to strategic, because this isn't loud pressure, it's quiet, systematic, relentless. The most Danish way possible. You don't need to fire a shot if you can drown someone in paperwork. And the place where this starts to matter most doesn't look dangerous at all. Skagen. At the northern tip of Denmark, where the Baltic Sea meets the North Sea. Tourists stand on the beach watching two waves collide. Fishing boats drift in and out. It's calm, predictable, quiet, but just offshore, some of Russia's most important economic traffic is being funneled into a narrow corridor under Danish observation and increasingly under Danish scrutiny. In 2025, Danish authorities began stepping up inspections tied to environmental compliance and maritime safety, specifically targeting vessels suspected of operating without proper insurance under EU sanctions frameworks. No headlines, no dramatic confrontation, just ships being slowed down, flagged, questioned, and sometimes held. One Danish harbor official, and speaking anonymously to a regional outlet, described it in the most understated way possible. "We're not stopping them," he said. "We're just making sure everything is correct." And that word, correct, is doing a lot of work. because correct can mean hours, days, sometimes longer. Now imagine sitting in Moscow, you've already lost access to major European markets, you're selling oil at a discount, and a big part of your workaround depends on ships slipping through quietly, without anyone asking too many questions. And then suddenly, Denmark starts asking a lot of questions, detailed ones, about ownership, about compliance, about safety, and each question is a potential delay. Each delay is a potential loss, and over time, those losses stack up. So what used to be a guaranteed exit route is starting to feel like a checkpoint, controlled by a country that has absolutely no interest in making things easier. But here's where the situation shifts, because while Denmark is tightening control over Russia's access to the Atlantic, something else is happening at the exact same time, and it has nothing to do with Moscow. It's happening thousands of kilometers away, in a place that until recently most people barely thought about at all: Greenland. And before we even get there, you need to understand why that island suddenly matters so much, because this isn't just about land, it's about positioning. The Arctic is changing, ice is retreating, shipping routes that used to be theoretical are starting to open. Resources that were once unreachable are now being discussed seriously, and militaries are watching all of it closely. Greenland sits right in the middle of that shift, not off to the side, not isolated, central. And that's where the real pressure begins, because the country controlling the exit of the Baltic is also sitting on one of the most important pieces of Arctic geography on the planet. And now other people are starting to care a lot. If the Danish Straits are the gate, then Bornholm is the camera watching it. A small island in the Baltic Sea that most people couldn't place on a map a few years ago. Now sitting directly in the middle of one of NATO's most sensitive observation zones. And here's what makes it uncomfortable for Russia. Bornholm isn't far away. It's right there. Roughly 300 kilometers from Kaliningrad, Russia's heavily militarized exclave wedged between Poland and Lithuania, a place packed with air defense systems, missile batteries, and naval assets, which means any aircraft taking off from Kaliningrad, any ship moving out of its ports, any unusual movement in that region happens within reach of Bornholm, within view, within tracking range. And that changes the dynamic completely, because Bornholm isn't just another island, it's the high ground, not in the traditional sense of elevation, but in positioning, awareness, timing. If something moves in the southern Baltic, Bornholm is one of the first places that sees it. And in 2026, Denmark has decided it wants that view to be permanent. So instead of treating the island like a quiet outpost, it's turning it into something else entirely. A forward position, not massive, not loud, but very intentional. Military presence has increased, logistics have been upgraded, infrastructure hardened, and armored units, something you wouldn't normally associate with the Danish island, are now part of the picture, not for show, for timing. Because in any serious Baltic scenario, everything around Bornholm happens quickly. There's no buffer, no long warning period. If something escalates, it escalates fast, which means whoever is already in position has the advantage. And Denmark has made it very clear it plans to be in position. But here's the part that gives this island a different kind of weight. Bornholm isn't just strategically important, it's historically sensitive. In 1945, as World War II was ending, Soviet forces bombed and occupied the island. Not Germany, not a contested front line. Denmark, a country that had already surrendered. And yet Bornholm remained under Soviet control for almost a year. It wasn't a long occupation, but it was enough. Enough to leave a memory. Enough to turn this small island into something more than just geography. Because when Danish planners look at Bornholm today, they're not just seeing radar coverage, they're seeing a place that has already been taken once before. And that changes how you defend it. Now combine that with what's happening in the Danish Straits. You control the exits, you monitor every ship, you reinforce the forward island, and suddenly the Baltic doesn't feel open anymore. It feels watched, measured, restricted. From Moscow's perspective, that's a problem. Because Russia's strategy in this region has always relied on freedom of movement, not dominance, not constant confrontation, but flexibility. The the ability to move when it wants, without immediate interference. That space is shrinking, quietly, without a single missile being fired. And the shift becomes even clearer when you look at how Denmark is talking about it, because Denmark doesn't escalate language easily. It avoids it carefully, consistently, but that changed. Danish officials have started referring to Russia in terms that would have been unthinkable not long ago. Not a competitor, not a concern, but an adversary, a direct one. And when a country like Denmark makes that shift, it's not emotional, it's calculated. It means the internal assessment has already moved further than what's being said publicly. Because countries like Denmark don't overreact. They adjust slowly, then they act. And that's exactly what this looks like. Not panic, not escalation, preparation. Now, from the outside, this still doesn't look dramatic. No massive troop surges, no constant breaking news. But that's what makes it effective. Because Denmark isn't trying to dominate the Baltic. It's shaping it, setting conditions, limiting options. Ships are tracked, routes are monitored, positions are reinforced. Nothing shuts down all at once, but everything becomes harder, more controlled, more predictable. And for a military that depends on unpredictability, that's a serious problem. Now, here's where things shift again, because everything we've talked about so far comes from one direction: Russia. Pressure in the Baltic, movement around Kaliningrad, economic flows through the Straits. But Denmark isn't only dealing with pressure from the east. At the exact same time, another pressure point is building, quieter, less visible, but potentially much more complicated. Because this time, it's not about ships, it's not about inspections, it's about sovereignty. Greenland. On paper, the situation looks simple. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, self-governing in many areas, but still tied to Copenhagen. That's the official structure. But strategically, it's something else entirely. It's massive. It sits at the edge of the Arctic, and it overlooks routes that are becoming more important every year, which is why the United States has maintained a presence there for decades. Patuffik Space Base, previously known as Thule Air Base, one of the most important early warning and tracking installations in the world. It monitors missile trajectories, tracks activity across the Arctic, and feeds directly into the systems that define strategic awareness for North America. That presence has always been understood, agreed upon, normal, but the conversation around Greenland didn't stay normal, because what started as a strange idea didn't disappear. Back in 2019, the idea of the United States purchasing Greenland surfaced publicly. At the time, it sounded absurd, something that would fade away after a news cycle. It didn't. By 2025 and into 2026, the tone changed. Less about buying, more about necessity, strategic control, ensuring that no other power gains influence in a region that's becoming more important every year. And that shift matters because now it's not a joke, it's a position. And for Denmark, that's where things become uncomfortable, because this isn't coming from a rival. It's coming from its closest ally, an ally that already has forces on the island, an ally that depends on that location for its own security architecture, and an ally that has started signaling more than once that Greenland is too important to be left uncertain. Denmark's response has been simple. Clear and repeated. Greenland is not for sale, not now, not later, not under any conditions. Greenland's own leadership has said the same thing, publicly, firmly. But here's the reality. When something becomes strategically critical, pressure doesn't disappear just because the answer is no. It increases, and Denmark is now finding itself in a position very few countries ever experience. Pressure from both sides. From the east, a rival testing limits in the Baltic. From the west, an ally looking at one of its territories and seeing something too valuable to ignore. And this is where the situation becomes something else entirely. Because Denmark is discovering that being a gatekeeper comes with a cost. If you control access, eventually someone wants control over you, or at the very least, control over what you control. Denmark is finding out that being a gatekeeper means your allies eventually want your keys, and now it has to hold both lines at the same time without losing either. The Arctic doesn't look like a battlefield. No cities, no roads, no front lines, just ice, distance, and silence. But that's exactly why it matters, because distance used to protect it, now it doesn't. Shipping routes that didn't exist 20 years ago are opening, not on paper, in reality. Routes that cut thousands of kilometers off global trade. Routes that bypass traditional choke points entirely. And every year, they become more usable, more valuable. At the same time, military activity is increasing. Submarines moving under Arctic ice, patrols expanding, detection systems pushing further north, because anything that crosses the pole arrives faster. Missiles, aircraft, everything. And Greenland sits right in the middle of it, not watching from the outside, inside the system, which means whoever controls Greenland controls one of the most important early warning positions on the planet. That's why the United States never left. That's why Russia is rebuilding Arctic bases and expanding operations in extreme conditions. This isn't preparation, it's positioning, and Denmark owns the ground that connects all of it. Now put that next to the Baltic. Ships still move, but not freely. Every transit is watched, every route understood, not blocked, controlled. And that's the shift. Denmark isn't stopping Russia, it's shaping how Russia moves, while at the same time refusing to give up control of the Arctic position everyone now wants, which creates something unusual. Two major powers, forced to operate around a smaller one. One trying to pass through, one trying to gain access, neither getting full control. That doesn't happen often. But Denmark isn't acting like a small country, it's acting like a gate. And gates don't need to be loud, they just decide who passes. Now here's where this stops being theoretical, because pressure like this doesn't stay balanced. At some point, someone pushes. Russia tests limits in the Baltic, the United States increases pressure around Greenland, and Denmark stays in the middle, holding both. That's not stability, that's a slow build, and slow builds usually end one way, with a moment where someone tests the gate. And when that happens, it won't be about routes or rules anymore. It will be about control. Who has it, who keeps it, and who is willing to challenge it, because Denmark already matters. The real question is simple: how far is Denmark willing to go to keep control of the gates it now holds?